They say history is written by the victors, but some stories are so brutal, so drenched in blood, so drenched in shame, that even the victors bury them. This is the story of a crusade, forgotten not because it failed, but because it succeeded far too well. A crusade not against Saracens in the Holy Land, but against fellow Christians. A crusade soaked not in righteousness, but in vengeance, greed, and betrayal. A crusade the Church desperately wants you to forget. The year is 1209. Pope Innocent III, the most powerful pope in history, has a problem. But it isn't the Muslim armies in Jerusalem or the fractured loyalty of European monarchs. No, his problem lies within the borders of Christendom itself, in the sunny, rolling hills of southern France, a place called Languedoc. Here, a quiet revolution was unfolding, not with swords but with ideas. A growing number of Christians, known as the Cathars, were preaching a radical belief that the material world was evil, the Church corrupt, and Christ's true teachings had been lost. They had no need for cathedrals, no need for priests, no need for Rome. To the Pope, they weren't just heretics, they were a virus. And like any infection, the Church decided it must be purged. But how do you kill an idea? With fire. In 1208, the Pope sent a diplomat to negotiate. His name was Pierre de Castelnau, a sharp-tongued monk determined to bring the Cathars back under Rome's heel. But the Cathars did not bend. And then, something unexpected happened. Pierre was found dead, murdered. No one knew who did it. Some whispered it was a nobleman sympathetic to the Cathars. Others said it was a false flag. But the Pope didn't wait for proof. He saw an opportunity. With a stroke of his pen, Innocent III declared a holy war, not against pagans or Muslims, but against fellow Christians. He called it a crusade, promised salvation to anyone who joined, not just forgiveness of sins but full indulgence, as if they had fought in Jerusalem itself. And the knights came. They came not for faith but for loot, for land, for power. Languedoc was wealthy. Its cities were sophisticated, its people literate and tolerant, the perfect target. And at the head of this crusade was a man whose name would be etched into the annals of infamy, Simon de Montfort, a warrior with no mercy, no hesitation, no soul. The campaign began with a city called Beziers, a vibrant place, home to both Catholics and Cathars. When the Crusaders arrived, they demanded the heretics be handed over. The townspeople refused. What happened next would stain the Church forever. The Crusaders breached the walls, and they slaughtered everyone, Cathar, Catholic, man, woman, child. When a soldier asked the papal legate, "How do we tell the heretics from the faithful?" the answer became legend. "Kill them all. God will know his own." 20,000 people were butchered in a single day. The rivers ran red. The churches burned. And still, the Pope called it a triumph. This wasn't a war of conversion. It was a war of annihilation. And it didn't stop. Carcassonne, Lavore, Minerve, city after city fell. Some tried to resist. Others surrendered and were still burned alive. The Inquisition was born from this campaign, not to fight outsiders but to police the faithful, to crush dissent, to silence ideas. And Simon de Montfort? He carved out a kingdom for himself, became the de facto ruler of southern France. He didn't just kill heretics. He confiscated their lands, their titles, their legacy. But he paid for it. In 1218, during the siege of Toulouse, Simon was struck by a stone hurled from a catapult, operated by local women and children. His skull was crushed. The city rejoiced, but the damage was done. Southern France would never recover its independence. Its language, its culture, its tolerance, all bled out under the Crusaders' boots. The Cathars were hunted to extinction. Their last known stronghold, Montségur, fell in 1244. Over 200 of them were burned in one mass pyre, not for rebellion, not for violence, but for believing the Church was corrupt. And yet, they were right. Centuries later, even Catholic historians would admit the Albigensian Crusade was a crime, a genocide masked in piety. So why don't we learn about it? Why isn't this taught alongside the Crusades to the Holy Land? Because it exposes something the Church doesn't want remembered. That the machinery of salvation can become a weapon of empire. That faith can be twisted into fanaticism. That the greatest threat to power is not the sword, but the truth. And the truth was dangerous. The Church tried to erase it, to bury it under centuries of silence. But the ghosts of Languedoc still whisper from the ruins. From the scorched walls of Beziers to the ashes of Montségur, they whisper a warning. Beware the righteous man with a sword, especially when he believes God is on his side.